All right, I'm here with the legendary B-Hop, Bernard Hopkins.
What's up, brother?
One of the greatest fighters out of Philly, Smokin Joe Frazier.
Yes, man. Yes, a legend. You know, I always say to people, man, is the Joe Frazier spirit and work ethics and everything lies on all Philadelphia fighters, man, and in the world, because people know how hard Joe always worked and he always pursued his prey in some cases, man. So it's good to represent that. It really is, especially if you represent it in a way we have done. But I had to get it from guys like Joe and Benny Briscoe, Marvin Hagler, God rest his soul. I mean, I can go on and on with a lot of, I gotta say, motivation from the past fighters.
50 years ago, last week, was the anniversary of Ali Frazier. What is your recollection of that, or just thinking back to that time?
Man, it was the Super Bowl of our sport. When you got two heavyweights that worldly known, also, you know, have a lot of beef between each other. Ali was the jokester, the poet, you know, the rapper. You know,
before his time.
Before his time, he was putting lyrics down every time he spoke, and he backed it up. I mean, he would go in there and he would do what he say, even mentioning what round in some cases in fights that he mentioned. But let's go back to that question about that Joe Frazier and Ali, the anniversary. Whew. I mean, we had some great moments past that 50-year time. But to me, nothing matches that. Haven't even came close. And there's been some great moments in boxing since then. But when you talk about the heavyweight division at that time, and you're talking about Joe Frazier and Ali, who at least promoted, talked about it, and also fought to almost the death. Unbelievable. And that's why one of the reasons we're going to talk about it 50 years later, you know, on top of that. So that is actually a blueprint for every fighter and athlete to look at how they took their sport and they took their job seriously, with respect and dignity, and they showed up. They showed up every time.
So with that being said, because you are the ultimate throwback guy, and your background, I know you were in the penitentiary. I know you were talking here. You had a rough upbringing. Were you even a boxing fan back then? Like, did you follow the Sweet Science?
I was more of a fight fan back then, and it wasn't even UFC back then. It wasn't even like I assume street fighting always been street fighting. They just took it to another level in technology of today, or last 10, 15 years ago. But yeah, it's like, I look at it like, coming from out of Philadelphia, coming from a fighting family, I didn't have a choice. I mean, it's not like, here's a football, here's a basketball, and here's some boxing gloves. It was like, here's some boxing gloves. Basically, you won't get nothing to eat tonight, or you had to fight. In the neighborhood, you had to be able to hold your hands and be able to protect the things that you had, whether it was your hat, your sneaks, your jacket. I mean, you had to have on your birth certificate, basically, in the neighborhood, that you could fight. Now, whether you win that fight today or you win a fight next week, you had to have that stuff. You had to have that type of teaching or an influence.
But it wasn't until you got to prison that you actually took up the sport. Or so you did box
yes,
before.
I had a lot of amateur fights. I had a lot of AAU fights, a lot of Golden Glove fights, and PAL, we had a PAL, Police Athletic League, was really big in Philadelphia. But I perfected it even more. I perfected even more once I got in that institution where I'm confined 22 hours out of 24. And I wanted to go down there and work out at the gym and see what I can do. And the reason I got in the boxing gym is because I wanted to get off the damn block. You know, the blocks is like a spoke wheel. You got the A, B, C, D, so you go all the way around. And I needed a reason to get off the block. And I tell the CO, guards, I'm going to the gym. And I wound up being at the gym, and I seen sparring, and I felt and I knew that I was better. That night, or that day rather, I wasn't. And I didn't like the taste of not being who I knew I could be. And that love came back, that determination to do better next time. And I never looked back.
What if they
I won
didn't?
3 championships in a 5-year span in a state prison. Cut you
What
off?
if? No. That's impressive. I mean, that's impressive.
I won 3 state championships that I have clarification on, that I can actually have DVDs. And also, if you go to my Instagram, BHopDLN, you will see a video of me fighting at the same prison I used to be in.
What if there was no boxing in prison? Where would you be?
Not doing the interview.
Not here with me.
Not doing an interview.
Yeah. Boxing saved your life.
Yes. I had to make decisions along with that, but if they didn't have that there, if they didn't have the boxing, I would have never got the feeling, I would have never got the desire from the amateurs, and when it came back. Because the reason I'm in prison, because I lost the desire for boxing when I was younger. I got older in my adolescence, I started getting bored with the boxing. I wanted things, I wanted to, have money in my pocket. I wanted to do all these things, and these things, take a career. It takes money to buy. So the shortcut that I took landed me in jail for 5 to 15 years. Means the minimum is 5, I can get out. The max is 15. But if you subtract 5 out of 15, that leaves my back time. So I had a long, extensive back time that I gave back every day and became who I am today. I think that's more of a testimony to never give up.
So your time in prison, if I'm hearing you right, shaped who you are today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because even in prison, there are negative things that happens and goes on. I realized through boxing and getting the love back, this is my ticket. This is my ticket to never come back. And you know what? This is 21, right? I was right about that ticket. I knew that this will be my ticket once I'm out to never come back as an inmate. Or I would say Y4145. That was my prison number. I still remember that. I will never forget that number.
Did you jump right back into boxing when you got out because you were doing it in prison?
I had my first fight 60 days after I was out, and I lost a 4-round to Clinton Mitchell at the Resort Casino. I was that eager to get in the ring. And he was 5-0 and I was 0-0. I was definitely an opponent on paper, but I didn't care because I wanted to fight. I wanted to get in the ring as soon as possible before the streets snatch me. Because the longer I stayed out of the ring and not come out of that institution and get right in that ring, I knew that there's a chance that I can go left.
Now, you're still young.
Not right.
Did you have mentors back then? I mean, how?
I had a lot of mentors, but what young person listen to mentors? We looking at old dudes trying to tell us something that they, believe you can be. And most of the people that was telling me something, they was sincere, but they failed in their life. It's hard, I believe, for you to get across certain individuals or generations, even now, if you're not a winner. I know that sounds kind of harsh. I know that sounds kind of untrue. But if you do a statistic on how many agree amongst young people to listen to a person that's successful, or listen to a person that's made it, or listen to a person that became something that they would love to be, it's more of a possibility for them.
When did you know boxing, that you were good at boxing and you can basically make it the rest of your life, be successful?
Once I knew my work ethics was better than most people. It had nothing to do with whether I was good, whether I was so good or so bad or in between. I knew my work ethics will override majority of people that's talented in me. A lot of guys I fought that was talented in me, that was faster in certain ways. Boxing, IQ was better, but the work ethics wasn't up to par. Mine's always been on speed dial. And then you put the other experience and also wanting to be who I became, knowing that I couldn't miss. Even when I came up with the L, it wasn't a loss, it was a lesson. If you look at the fights I lost early in my career, whether it's by decision, whether it's by a judge, I came back stronger. It goes back to the story we just talked about, or I talked about. I'm not comfortable losing. I just understand it. And whatever you understand, you can be able to deal with it more better than not understanding it.
Was the Tito Trinidad your breakout moment in boxing?
Oscar De La Hoya was, because Tito Trinidad was putting people on notice that I was a real deal. The Oscar fight was more of, now you reached Hollywood, but not become Hollywood. You reached a star by your name in boxing. And I became pound for pound with Tito and also Oscar. I think the Oscar fight took me to a point where it was at the Staples Center. It was in LA.
At 160, if I recall.
And I came in at 57 and a half, just to make a statement, because they had a cap on the weight, even though it was my titles, and I didn't care. I thought they thought that was an advantage, so I came 2 pounds under. It's called messing with the head.
Were you surprised he wanted to challenge you at that weight?
Yeah.
Did you look at it as a sign of disrespect?
No. I looked at it as a sign that they think I'm getting old. And they were saying that when I was 35. When I fought him, I was close to 40.
Oscar was the guy to fight back then, though, right? I mean, he was the guy.
Yeah.
From a financial standpoint.
Yeah, and look how things work for me. Not luck, predained. Partners for 20 years. Partners for 20 years. In probably a day or two. And you remember, if you was around, whatever college you was in or getting out, they said we wouldn't last 60 days, right? You remember that?
Yeah.
20-something years now.
Been that long.
Haven't I defined a lot of predictions of what my life is going to be by those who predict what I would be and where I would be at? This is a sign who I am and what I stand for, and the challenges that will never go away. They're different challenges. That if you think Bernard Hopkins is going to not be productive in whatever he does or do, then you're a fool. Because there's too many times where I have overcame a lot of predictions to be considered lucky. Luck and Bernard Hopkins are enemies. We don't get along.
Do you believe in fate, destiny?
Absolutely. I believe things is already basically laid down for me. I just got to go the right path. And life tells you that sometimes you're going to get off that path. But is it a loss or a lesson? Depending on if you're still living after that lesson. See, some lessons can lock and wipe you out. And some lessons can make you smarter and stronger.
How come there are not more guys like you in boxing that, you know, I mean, you came from...
Let me ask you the question.
Yeah.
Because they wasn't born by Shirley Mae Hopkins. And their father wasn't Bernard Hopkins Sr. There are certain chemistry and those two bodies that came from them. Because we all came from some tree of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so until that happens, the way mine's did, because a lot of great things didn't happen. And a lot of great moments didn't came out of that. But I'm talking about my two trees that created me blossomed to be who I am. And think about it, I almost threw it away. I almost didn't reach or hear my calling. That is the testimony itself.
Do fighters seek you out for advice, knowing what you've been through?
Nonstop. To the day, nonstop. And a lot of that got to do with credibility. A lot of that got to do with being consistent. The generations that's coming up still know who I am. That's the key.
How does that make you feel?
That makes me feel great. That makes me feel great because if they know who you are, you don't have to explain who you are or what you did. Their uncle or their father or their mother or somebody that's of age already explained it to them. So they already got a cosigner already that co-signed for them. Now when they're in that presence, they get a chance to be educated even further.
When I say Roy Jones, what comes to mind?
Michael Jordan in boxing at that time. I say it again. After you say what you said again.
When I say Roy Jones, what comes to mind?
Michael Jordan in boxing in his era and my era. And because of that, I didn't win my first world champion in 1993 at RFK Stadium under the Riddick Bowe and Jesse Ferguson undercard. People can say what they want to say about Roy and his knockout losses to Tarver and Glenn Johnson, who I beat. I gave Glenn his first loss, knocking him out in the 11th round in Indianapolis, where the Pacers used to play or play.
Right.
Roy Jones was the most unorthodox, lightning speed with power. They can do everything wrong at that time and never pay a price for it because he was so fast. As the great Muhammad Ali said, he could turn the light off and be in the bed before the light off. That's fast. Where you can hit the light switch and be in the bed before the light's out. Roy Jones was that type of individual. And I don't have a problem saying it. And that's the Roy Jones I always remember because I fought Roy at his young, and I was young, at his peak of greatness. He was just peeking in to get the greatness. He had it written all over him. Silver medalist, should have been gold,
Right.
but shoulda, woulda, coulda. He got robbed out of that.
Right.
But I knew who I was, even in defeat. And it wasn't just going 12 rounds. Because Roy hit me 1 or 2 times that I felt I better go ahead and be cautious. And that's what you want to have a fighter think. Oh, shit. And once you take a peek down without looking and realize you're still standing up, you want to make sure you stay up. So I learned from that. And why can I say that so confident and not have evidence? Learning that lesson, I went on to be undefeated for over 12 years, winning titles after Roy left the division. You didn't ask me, but I'm telling you. You know what fight I wish if I can have one fight back then?
I don't even want to guess.
James Toney. At 160 pounds, James Toney and Bernard Hopkins would have been one of those fights that we made the cover of Ring magazine. The fight was ready to be signed, and it went haywire. But Ring magazine had already printed it because everybody wanted to see it. That magazine is still out there. You can find it yourself, do your research. And that fight didn't happen. I was very disappointed because I would have loved to pit my skills with a guy that at that time had offense and defense skill, shoulder roll, the whole 9 yards. And can you imagine the press conference? You just sold tickets to the press conference to that fight. James Toney and Bernard, you know I'm gonna come in there with something. And he's gonna come in. I would have came in there with a whole bunch of cotton candy so he can eat it and call him a fat sucker. And he would have been upset.
So it's interesting. I interviewed Roy over the summer, the day after they made the Tyson-Roy Jones announcement, and he was in Dallas. And I asked
He
he was here. And I asked him who his toughest opponents were, and he broke it out by like style, speed. James Toney was the best boxer he said he ever fought.
Right.
Not surprised to hear that.
No. James Toney had a slip game, man. James was. That's why I knew I wanted to fight the best. I mean, my record, you know, it reflects that, and that's why I wanted that James Toney fight. It wouldn't have been easy. We both probably been in the ICU. You know, eating applesauce the day before. You know, so yeah, I wanted that heat. I wanted that heat, and I wanted to give him some heat, and whoever wins, wins. But that fight didn't happen. But, you know, I have no regrets, though.
You had a hell of a career, Bernard. I mean, this is an honor interviewing you for FightNews.com, Jeff
Respect.
Zimmerman.
Yes.
And we'll end it here because you are here for a big fight this weekend.
Absolutely, yeah.
Vergil Ortiz Jr., Maurice Mighty Mo Hooker. We could talk all day, and I would love to talk to you some more.
Well, I'm going to be watching out for that hook. I hope it don't land. But it's going to be thrown early, and it's going to be thrown often.
Do you see Vergil as a kind of a throwback?
Oh. He in his time right now, but he came back as somebody else. He came back as Vergil, but he's really somebody from the throwback because his whole poise, his whole style, and his demeanor is intimidating to some of these guys that don't know what that is. I do.
Unshakable. Bernard, thanks for your time.
Fight News. You get all the news. You don't get fluff, you get news.
You know about that.
Yes.